But the game I am playing, I got the review code for from Aspyr, Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 remasters. I've been playing that for the last week. And I've got to say, I'm pretty happy with this. So let me play a video here. I'm gonna let this video is on my desktop. Is on my desktop. Let this play in the background. Oh, that's a huge video. Okay. Here. Anyway, so yeah, Tomb Raider Remastered. It is so the Tomb Raider was this series. Maybe this will loop. Hopefully it loops. I don't know. Tomb Raider was sort of a series that it felt like it owned the 90s. You really couldn't go anywhere within the gaming sphere without it popping up. Like Lara Croft. She was like this polygonal / pixelated heroine that was kind of on the same, at the time, was on the same level as Mario and Sonic and some of the biggest, like there were pillars of gaming and Lara Croft was up there, like Mario, Sonic, Lara Croft, and Pac-Man. Like those are the four in that era. And those first 3 games are massive. Yeah, Chestnut pointy enough, 0 out of 5. And so, that era was great. I mean, it was for those who were growing up in the 90s, everybody played, everybody talked about it, everybody remembered that era and what that era kind of meant to us growing up. For me, it was junior high, middle school, and high school, and a little bit of college. And the Tomb Raider games. The Tomb Raider games were like a big part of gaming back then. I still kind of get that same nostalgia now when I think about it. And that era still kind of holds the same gaming nostalgia, like the N64 and the PlayStation. Like that was the battleground. You had the PC stuff, which is cool, which this came in, but N64, PlayStation. And I knew Lara Croft Tomb Raider as a PlayStation game because that's where I was most exposed to it. Wasn't really a PC gamer at the time. But that was the 90s. Tomb Raider changed a lot since then, right? That original trilogy had very specific touches and very specific methods of play. Over the years after that, through the 2000s, 2011s, kind of developed those more gaming themes, took them on, like more storytelling, started borrowing back from like the games that sort of spun from it, like Uncharted. It started borrowing back from Uncharted, and even like was it Enslaved Odyssey to the West. I don't know if folks have played that one, some of the action adventure in that one. Like a lot of those details started to seep into Tomb Raider, and those actually came from Tomb Raider in a way, right? So Tomb Raider kind of went away from being this pure style game. Hit the replay button. Pure style game into something that was more modernized. Well, like I said, the original trilogy had a lot of purity. It really was sort of about action and these big set pieces and big tombs, the ideas of like levels and collection and all that kind of stuff. Like there were cinematic sequences, like I said, but it really was about how we made our way through those levels, what treasures we picked up, how fast we could get through, how many enemies we could avoid or shoot, things like that, the gamey things. Excuse me. So Remastered makes it more apparent than ever to me that gaming has changed and evolved and learned from itself, like all for the better, like I mentioned for those things. So the moment I started playing, and you can kind of see in the video right here, it really kind of felt like the 90s all over again, or at least like what I felt like I remembered the games looked like back then. You see some of the views here, and you look at the original, it's like super blocky, but then you see the modern versions, and they've done some really nice renders and really updated polygonal stuff with the characters and updated textures, dynamic lighting, shadows, and rain is actually better now. It's not just in one angle. It's not one layer. Let me kind of go over here. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. So this is Lara now. It's Lara Croft. She used to be. Let's see. She used to be this, and we thought this was amazing. But yeah, looking back now, you couldn't remember that was Lara Croft. Like this is what we know of Lara Croft now. Like, this is what was rendered on the game boxes. Now they're actually able to take those boxes, those posters, and make them the actual game. So I really felt like they did a really cool job of doing that, but yeah, that nostalgia is like right there. It updates all the visuals. Everything kind of feels pixel perfect. It's actually like a really impressive way to update a game without kind of breaking what it's meant to be. We saw that with like some of the Halo Master Chief Collection stuff, and other games do that too. But it's really impressive here because it is more of like I said, what we thought the game looked like based on some of the covers and some of the advertisements. So it's like modern without trying to be realistic. I guess maybe that's the best way to say it. And it's really easy to kind of flip back and forth between the classic visuals and the modern visuals, and I like that because the dev team for some reason, they made the modern visuals almost a little bit too dark because of the dynamic lighting and shading. So for some reason, like there'd be some areas where you'd be inside a cave and it's just really dark. So switch back to the original visuals, which had smaller color palette, and that the lighting was always pointing in the same direction to get through some of those areas. So like I found myself flipping back and forth from a gameplay method rather than just visual method, rather than just my taste. So I thought that was a kind of interesting thing. I don't know if that was intended. It probably wasn't, but it worked in a way. And on the Switch, it even runs at like 60 FPS, which is kind of amazing. It's really great take on that style. Like this is Tomb Raider. This is what I remember Tomb Raider, and it looks really good on modern consoles. There's a bunch of collectibles and modes. There's like all the expansions are there, which a lot of people those of us who played on console didn't get a chance to play. It's kind of amazing they're able to fit everything in and made that kind of nostalgia really rip through, but it's almost default. And what I mean by that is like camera's still really bad because of the control method. I'll get to that momentarily, but like I'll find myself getting stuck in corners, up against walls, under overpasses all the time, and so the camera would be clipping nonstop. Like I'd be seeing the back of the wall instead of staring at it with Lara in that direction. And that made for some awkward sequences and moments. I would have to back myself out to try to find out where I was, and sometimes you would fall off a ledge because those are just kind of faced in the wrong way, right? The camera just doesn't quite work. And then the other thing, and this is the one that really irked me, is that the controls are still stuck in that classic era. And what I mean by that is you have those tank controls that the games were initially designed with, right? The game was tank controls. You turn, move, that kind of stuff. And that's what made the game kind of function the way they were. Well, obviously modern games don't really play out like that. So they allow you to switch to what they call modern controls, but they're not modern enough, right? So the modern controls are still like, let me rephrase it this way. In typical modern games, you can actually get momentum when you're jumping. You can actually jump from like standstill and move in a direction, tilt the stick one way, tilt the stick the other way. Every modern game has it, from 2D games to 3D games to everything in between, 4D, VR. I don't know. You don't do that in this game. You have to be moving, still have to move in the same direction and jump. You need that momentum. And I know this game is built on momentum, but that really holds it. And I also know that if they went with something that was actually a very modern control method, you'd probably break the game, right? You'd be able to, it would either be way too easy or the opposite. It may end up being way too hard because all the game was built because of the controls back in the day. And so it just feels like it's still being held back by that. And I think that was a part that made me not love that era. Like I was falling into pits all the time. And listen, I don't fall in pits anymore. Like I'm pretty dang good at like action platformers, but man, it's it just it my modern brain wouldn't let me do that, like revert back to that, because it just felt wrong. And so I think, you know, they made the controls modern, but the character doesn't move modern. I think that's still somehow broken. But anyways, probably. It's still like a really great collection of those original games, and I know there have been like collections before and HD re-releases, whatever. The actual remaster like brings a bunch of those cool touches to the series. I just wish they took that extra step, made one more adjustment or two to the controls and the camera, to make it feel more modern. But I mean, maybe that would have to, you have to change a lot of the game to do that. I don't know. Regardless, it's still worth picking up. It's great. Like I don't talk about pricing when I review stuff, but it's a great price. It's right there. It's if you are a fan of those original games, you can pick it up. And if you've never played those original Tomb Raider games, you wanted to see what they were like, definitely this is the version. This is the version to get. You know? It's really cool to kind of relive that era again in all of its tank control glory, and kind of what we thought of, what we remember of the era. So yeah, nicely done. This is the way to do some of these remasters. Take that extra little step, but that would really make it killer. But I think for what they've accomplished here, it's pretty awesome. I'm really surprised at how well this turned out. And again, nothing against Aspyr and that team over there. It's just that, again, you're able to remake a game and capture the memories rather than just update the game. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, all those collectibles are really neat too. So yeah, that's it. That's Tomb Raider 1, 2, 3 Remastered. Definitely kind of check it out.